So, hi, friends. I'm Molly. I am the Senior Director of Policy and Artist Programs at the Rhode Island State Council on the Arts. And you're here today for our Community Engaged Project Grant and Make Art Grant application walkthroughs. So, I don't have a fancy PowerPoint or anything like that, maybe coming next year. So, we'll just really walk through what these grants are and then walk through the applications question by question. One thing I do want to flag for y'all is if you are repeat RISCA grant appliers, our grants are looking pretty different. The grant application is looking pretty different this year due to we spent about 7 months kind of overhauling and streamlining the applications to make them smaller. The other major changes are that there will only be one grant application deadline per year for project grants. So if you're interested in applying for a community engaged project grant or a Make Art grant, the only application deadline this year will be April 1st. There won't be an October project grant cycle. Meanwhile, the general operating support for artists application will move from a due date of July 1st to a due date of October 1st. And I think the other big difference is that there's an increase in the amount of funds. You can now request up to $5,000 for either the CEPG or the Make Art grant. So on your screen here, other than me, you will see RISCA's website. So I just wanted to give an overview of sort of how to navigate the website and how to navigate into our grant system. So if you're like, oh, what are the grants that RISCA has? You'll click right here on grants and we'll check out our grants. So use in really helpful fashion, all of the grants that are open now are at the top. And then grants that are going to be open later in the year or are not project grants or have a open no deadline or sort of recurring are down here sort of sorted and filed. Um, so you can see right here, we're going to talk about these two today, the community engaged project grants and the Make Art grants. Some other really helpful resources that have changed in the last year or so, and by that I mean in the last 2 months, we have a new applicant resources page that's much more robust than it used to be. So you can just click over here into applicant resources and it will give you sort of an FAQ style overview of a whole lot of questions, including who can apply, what's a UEI? So I know y'all don't need to worry about that for this grant, and other useful, important pieces of information. Two things I really want to flag for you are down here at the bottom, we have a little resource about what grants are and how they work. A lot of the folks that come to us are applying to RISCA or applying for grants for the first time ever. So we wanted to make sure we have some support for those like very, very newbies and welcome. So what are grants and how do they work? And then the second piece, which you'll see in the Make Art grant, is we now have an artist statement resource about what is an artist statement, why an artist statement is important, and then some resources on how to write your own because you will be needing to write one for your Make Art grant. Other resources that you can check out include this panelist page, which will give you information about what happens after you submit and how the grant decisions are made. And if you're interested in serving as a panelist, you can fill out this nice form right here. And then finally, for our grantees, if you're curious on what happens if you get a grant, we have this for grantees page that has basically what happens after you receive a grant, and then many other, not any other questions about just sort of some FAQs. So that's the RISCA website. So we're going to go back to grants here. And we'll start with a Make Art grant because that's the one we get the most applications in. So the Make Art grant is fantastic, right? I'm so happy we have this grant. It really is what the title says it is. It's a grant that supports artists or group of artists to create or continue creation of specific artwork in any discipline. So I just want to make sure y'all know any discipline means film, fiction, creative nonfiction, poetry, textiles, wampum, music, painting, all of the things, right? So if you think it's an art form, it probably is. We define art as broadly as possible. Um, the other thing to know about the Make Art Grant is that it's a project grant. So it's not unrestricted funding to just continue work that you're doing right now. It doesn't support your art practice in general. You'll need to have something specific. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit here in our guidelines, and you can click this little accordion and see 3 examples of projects that would count as a Make Art Grant. And one thing they all have in common is that they have specific outcomes and goals. Though you'll see for some of them, the artist is completing a project, right? And for some of them, it's just a phase of the project. We understand that many art projects cost more than $5,000 and might take longer than a year to create. That's fine, as long as you're specific about what the grant is going to support in the overall process. So we're looking at 3 projects. One we'll look at an actual application for. This first one, 3 artists will work towards creation of a new site-specific performance piece. They'll spend time together developing work and experimenting using viewpoints. The artists will work around a theme of climate change and flooding, with a long-term plan being to perform this at Salty Brine Beach in Rhode Island. So that gives you the big picture idea of what this project is. And then we have the important piece, what this grant application is going to fund specifically in this overall piece, which is over 4 months in the summer, these 3 artists will create a framework for the performance and an outline of the script. So that gives you an idea of how much time they're going to spend working on this and what they're going to accomplish. So that's the important piece about Make Art Grant. And then we will highlight over here. You can also see all of these nice downloads if you need them. Some of them you are required to use. So you can download these guidelines, these same guidelines here, which has what the grant is, all of the funding rules and restrictions, how to apply, the evaluation criteria, etc. As a PDF, you can download that here. If you want to get a preview of the application questions before you log into the online grant portal, you can download a PDF of the application questions here. If you're curious how the panel, what criteria the panel are going to be using to score, you can download that here. It's very different than it used to be. It's now not a big rubric. It's really, you're just getting scored on 3 review criteria and a total of 5 points. And then we have 3 templates that you're required to use as part of this application. The first one is a budget template. The second one is a project plan template. And the third one is a work samples list template. And we'll look at all of those today. So I'm going to jump in here and I'm going to proceed to the online application. That will take me to the grants portal for individuals. So one thing I want to say about our grants portals is we have 2, one for organizations and one for individuals, and they look very, very similar, and they are completely separate and different. So if you have a login in the organizations portal, it will not work in the individuals portal and vice versa. You can guess that this is a question we get a lot. So one way to check is up here in the URL. The individuals portal is Arts RI Scholarship, and the organizations portal is Arts RI. The easier way to check is right here on the right where it says Grant Portal for Individuals. Now, I'm not going to log in as Molly, the RISCA staff member, because then you'll see the wrong end. I'm going to log in under my Muggle account. So you'll see what it looks like from the point of view of an applicant. So here we go. We're looking at this. So the first thing you're going to do, this is where you log in the applicant dashboard. You can see that my Muggle profile has applied for 14 grants in the past. These are all over here. So if you've applied for a grant in the past, all of the information that you used is here in the view application. So you can look back at your past applications very, very easily, regardless of whether or not you submitted them, regardless of whether or not you were awarded. they're all still there. And then here under, I've clicked back into active requests. And in active requests, you can see my 2 active applications that I have open now. So you're logging in for the first time, you've created a profile. We have a whole video on how to do that in our YouTube playlist. And you want to start a new application. You will come on in and you'll click apply here up at the top. And then all of these are all of the grants that we currently have open for application for RISCA. I want to highlight that you can only apply for 1 grant per grant cycle. So at this April 1st due date, you can only apply for 1 of these 4 grants. So pick the one that fits your project and your art best. As you can see here, I can't click apply on either CEPG or MakeArt grant because I already have applications in process. So it'll just tell me that, and if I click on that, and I can go to that. If I didn't have one in process, I'd click apply. It would take me to the beginning of the application. The other thing you can do here is you can preview the application form just in the same way as you can look at the PDF. So you can just look at everything, and if you want to download it, you click this question list up here. So I'm going to head back to the apply, and I'm actually going to head back to my dashboard by clicking this little home, and we're going to jump into Viewpoints and Climate Change, which is a MakeArt grant application. All right, so here we go. So this is what the application looks like as an applicant, right? This is exactly what you'll see. So the first piece is going to be guidelines and template forms. It's just an overview of all of those same things that are on the sidebar on the website, the guidelines, the evaluation criteria, and then the 3 templates you'll need. The next section is the eligibility checklist. This section, these 2 questions, the eligibility checklist and partial funding, are not seen by the panel. So they won't even see this. They won't even know this section exists. This is only for RISCA staff. So you'll want to run down the eligibility checklist and select all that apply. If you're confused about what something means, all of these are more robustly defined in the grant guidelines. So you can see here, I've just clicked them all because they are all accurate. I am a legal resident of the United States. I have lived in Rhode Island for more than 1 year as of the date of this application. And again, there are definitions of those 2 things in the guidelines. I'm over 18 years of age. I am not currently enrolled in an arts degree seeking program or attending high school full-time. So what this means is not, okay, I'm taking a jewelry class at the Steelyard to keep up with my practice, or I'm taking a class from RISD continuing ed on something. Those things are fine. What this is like, I am not currently enrolled as a full-time visual arts student at Rhode Island College. I'm not in an formal degree seeking program. The next piece is this is not a project of a nonprofit or an organization. These grants are specifically for individual artists working and groups of artists working outside the support and structures of more formal entities. Again, that's all defined in the applicant resources page, and you can always ask me. And if it is a project of a nonprofit, then the nonprofit can go apply for project grants for organization, which has the same deadline of April 1st. This project is not receiving direct funding from another RISCA grant. This would include if you were being funded directly by like the Wilbury Theater Group, who receives general operating support for organizations from us. So if you're getting direct dollars from any other entity that is somehow directly funded by a RISCA grant, whether it's a project grant or general operating support, you're not eligible. This is a typo that we will fix. This organization is not applying for another RISCA grant at the same time deadline. This should be deleted. Sorry about that. We were moving a little fast. Things were changing quickly in late January when we were getting these open. This piece is important. This artist is not applying for another RISCA grant at the same deadline. This is another. Yes, this project is not receiving direct funding from an organization receiving RISCA GOSO funding, which I just said. I am a practicing artist, and we have a definition of that on the guidelines website, but really it means you you call yourself an artist, you are working towards, or you currently are earning some portion of your income from art making. It does not need to be your full-time job. You don't even need to be earning most of or even some, just something that you're working towards in a sort of professional manner. You're not currently receiving a RISCA General Operating Support for Artists grant. This does not impact your application for GOSA in the fall. So as long as you're not part of the current cohort, you're fine. Um, all RISCA funded activity is taking place within the state of Rhode Island. So we're part of state government. So all of our grant making has to fund projects that are happening within the state of Rhode Island. This means if you're looking for funding to travel across the border to Attleboro, which is, about half a mile from where I am right now, um, and you're going to be doing some project work in Attleboro, it's not eligible. The aspects of the grant, the aspects of the project that are funded by the RISCA grant have to be happening in Rhode Island. So this could take a number of different ways. If you're doing some of the project out of state, that's fine. The RISCA funds just can't fund that or fund travel. So you could be a painter that paints from photos. You could travel all over to take the photos, but if the grant is funding the painting part of it, not the photo taking, and the painting part is happening at your studio somewhere in the state of Rhode Island, then you're fine. And then finally, I am not a RISCA staff or council member or an immediate family member of a RISCA staff or council member. That means you would be ineligible. And then the second piece of this info for RISCA staff is I will accept partial funding. So what is partial funding? It's exactly what it sounds like. Since we get so many more applications than we're able to fund, we only partially fund a number of applications so we can get more folks funded. So how this is going to work is that the top couple of applications, the top scoring applications, will receive full funding. And then this next tier, right, one that we call internally at RISCA the messy middle. So not the applications that have scored the tippy top, and also not the applications that the panel says, no, that's not a great use of public funding, they shouldn't get funded. But those messy middle where it's like, that's a great application, there's way more than we can fund, we're going to be awarding those through a lottery after the panel scores based on panel score. And those will all get a flat amount of partial funding. By flat amount, I don't mean a flat dollar amount. It'll be a percentage of what you requested, likely around 70%, but we're not sure yet. It depends on the number of applications we receive. We will say that there is a basement to partial funding. You will definitely receive a minimum of 50% of the request or $1,000, whichever is higher. So if you've requested $1,000, that's the basement amount you'll get. So you will get full funding or nothing at all. But if you've requested $3,000, the lowest number you can get is 50% of that request, which is $1,500 higher than that $1,000. All right, that was a lot for this very first easy section. So we'll move on from the eligibility checklist. And again, this partial funding, feel free to say no if you won't. That's fine. The panel doesn't see it. It won't impact your scores. And RISCA staff, we're not going to take it personally, right? You know what you can and can't do better than us. Zero judgment. It's just for our own reference, and again, won't impact your panel scores. So then the next section we're going to move on to is logistics. So here you'll see this project that I read the example of from our grant guidelines. So first we have the first question for the panel, and you can see here info for the panel. The panel will see this. Preferred name. So this should be the name you go by. It might be your legal name. It might not be. Please use how the name that you would like to be referred to publicly and by the panelists and by me. Same with pronouns. It's optional. You don't need to include your pronouns, but again, it's just a way to make sure that we are respectfully referring to folks, respectfully and correctly referring to folks. And again, not required. Then we go down to the project name and project summary. So these two pieces are pretty important because they'll be the pieces that are seen publicly if you do get a grant. They'll be the pieces that are seen by our council who reviews and approves the panel recommendations. So you want to make sure you can tell what the project is from these two bits. And as you'll see, there's not a lot of writing in this application, so this project summary is going to be very important. So we have a really clear project name, Viewpoints, which is a way of creating performing arts, a technique, and climate change, what it's about. Then we move on to the project summary. And here we have just something really simple. It's less than 500 characters, which is the maximum, and characters does include spaces and punctuation. So it just names the three artists that are going to be working on this project: Erica Musterman, who's the lead applicant, Maria de la Cruz, and Ayam Adami. They'll work towards a creation of a new site-specific performance piece. They will spend time together developing work and experimenting using viewpoints. The artists will work around a theme of climate change and flooding, with a long-term plan being to perform this piece at Salty Brine Beach in Rhode Island. Over 4 months in the summer, the three artists will create a framework for the performance and an outline for the script. So it's really just a very short and succinct description of what the project is and what's going to be accomplished during the grant funding time. Then this next piece is the amount requested, and we will look at the budget for this project so you can see where I got those numbers. But you'll want to pull this directly from your budget, how much money you're asking for. Please know that you cannot request over $5,000. And please round to the nearest dollar. Look at when this project will take place. So the application deadline of April 1st, this grant cycle will fund project activity happening between July 1st, 2025 and June 30th, 2026. So you have a full year. You don't need to use the full year. So you're just going to say within those dates when it's going to start and finish. So as we can see up here in the description, this says over 4 months in the summer. And so we're starting in July and ending in October, which is technically the fall. It's close enough, right? Then we'll see these other two artists who are involved in the project in addition to the lead applicant, Erica. And it says what they are doing. They are co-creators and performers. Then this next piece is the project plan. So this is a new form, a new template that we're using this year, and it replaces the timeline. And it's very similar to the timeline. It's just a little bit more robust. You want to include a little bit more information. So I'm going to show you the project plan for this project. And I did that just by clicking on this little eyeball here, which is the same way the panelists will look at it and the same way I'll look at it when I'm screening everything. I'm just going to zoom in. So this template is downloadable as an Excel, and you need to save it as a PDF to upload it. It's pretty simple for this project. It can vary in complexity depending on your project, depending on how detailed you need to get. So here I have just July 15th through October 15th, that 4-month period, rehearsals, and then like what's happening, rehearsals, creation and experimentation on site. And then I'm going to have a description of what we're actually doing in that time period, which is we're going to meet at this beach and we're going to play using viewpoints. Then I have the next piece, which is the same period of 4 months and rehearsals, but it's planning and scripting sessions. So it's a little bit different. It shows that we're going to alternate between creation in the site-specific space and then working in a more formal dance space, creating the script and the performance outline and refining work created on the beach. This also identifies where we are meeting and how long we are meeting for each of those times. And you'll see when we get to the Community Engaged Project Grant, you could have each of those rehearsals scheduled out and what you're going to do at those rehearsals if you know. If you don't, something like this is fine. And And then the third item I have here is for that same 4-month time period is research. So each collaborator is going to be expected to spend a minimum of 1 hour per week outside of this group rehearsal time on research and writing. And then we have a little text wrap issue here, so make sure you don't do that. But I also have a final planning session, right? So this is a project that's in process. We're going to have a very specific outcome, which is to have an outline of the performance. And so I wanted to make sure that as a wrap up of this phase of the project, we had a planning session where we're planning the future development of the project and sort of cementing what we've done, which is what it says in the cell here, if you can read it, if I had done it properly. So that's the project plan. That takes up a lot of what used to be narrative questions go in there. Okay. The next piece we're going to look at is these metrics for success. So this is asking you, what things do you care about? What makes a successful project to you? What are the goals of the project and what are you going to be measuring? I encourage you not to have all of these as a goal. Because that's too many. But you should have some, and they can be different, right? They're going to be really based on you. We also have others if these ones don't fit right. So for this project, I have highlighted learning about a material or technique because this project is really about learning to use viewpoints as a group, and experimentation, trying something new, failing better, right? We're just creating the outline of a script. We're not completing a specific art piece. I do expect there to be artistic aesthetic growth and artistic risk-taking as part of this process, but those aren't the main things that I care about and that I'm wanting to measure. It's really these experimentation and learning about a material or technique. So you're going to highlight the things you most care about getting from this project. And if it's something else, you can put it in here. Then the next piece is understanding and agreeing that RISCA funds will not be used for this whole laundry list of items. So I will say that a lot of this list is directly from the National Endowment for the Arts because we do get about 30% of our funding from the NEA. And then some of it is state rules and regulations as well. So these are just things that we are bound by. RISCA staff does not have any choice in what these are. But you should just know that you cannot spend RISCA money on these things, which includes capital improvement projects like construction or renovation of buildings or major permanent equipment purchases. This isn't like film for your camera or paints or canvases. This is a $6,000 sewing machine, right? It's like major permanent equipment purchases. The second piece is addressing, eliminating, or reducing existing debt, or development or fundraising, such as social events or benefits or any fundraising expenses. Number 3 is entertainment and hospitality for things like receptions, parties, galas, etc. If you have items that you need to purchase food or something for a core programmatic purpose and they're included in your budget, those are probably allowable. If you're not sure, make an appointment with me or send me an email and ask me. The next piece that's not allowed is prizes and awards for an event, person, or organization. So you can't re-grant, you can't, if you're holding an art competition, you can't use RISCA funds to create a prize, that sort of thing. Activities that are associated with graduate or undergraduate degree programs or for which academic credit is received. Applications for projects that proselytize or promote religious activities or which take place as part of a religious service. Programming, performances, and exhibitions unavailable or inaccessible to the public. So if you're working on a Make Art grant and you're just working on the creation phase, it's okay if that's not accessible to the public because that's not where we're at in the process, right? If you're looking for funding for an event where the public is invited, it must comply with ADA laws. And then finally, expenses incurred or activity happening outside of the award period. So for example, this award period starts July 1st. say you started the project on June 15th and you bought a bunch of supplies on June 15th, you're hoping that this grant can reimburse you for those supplies that you'll be using during the project period. Nope, gotta wait till July 1st to buy those supplies. So then after you've read all of those, made sure you're spending the money in ways that are all allowed, we'll have you do your budget. And one thing you can see here, check out this video. There's a video on how to make this budget. And by this budget, I mean we're using this budget specifically that you're seeing here as part of this application in our new budget video. So here you'll see how I got to this budget request of $3,850. So the budget's a little simpler, but mostly the same as it used to be. Here we don't have any other money coming in for this project, which is fine, right? I would say probably 80% of the applications that come through Make Art Grant only have the RISCA grant as the money coming in. But if you have earned revenue or contributed revenue, if you're getting a sponsorship from an art supply store and they're giving you a $50 gift card to buy supplies, that would go in here. That'd be contributed revenue. If you're teaching, if you're running a workshop production as part of this and you're charging for tickets, that would go here and earn revenue. All of those forms of income are totally fine. We know that $5,000 is probably not enough to do what you want to do, and we're happy for you to be making money in any way you can. The other thing I'll say, and this is a question I get about Make Art Grant, RISCA doesn't own the work or have any intellectual property rights over the work you create as part of this grant. You can do whatever you want with the work after you've created it. We just want to help you create it. So if you finish this piece and then you sell it for like $1 million, we are only going to be happy about that. So that is the good thing. Okay, then expenses. So here's how expenses worked out for this. I will note that the very first line item on expenses is payment to applicant. RISCA believes strongly in the value of artists and arts administrators. And one of the ways we measure value in the United States is with money. You got to eat. So please pay yourself. Please pay your collaborators. You are worth it. So here we have payment to the applicant. So this is payment to Erica, the lead applicant. And we've written down exactly how we got to that number, which is 3 hours of rehearsal time and 1 hour of solo work per week for 12 weeks, 48 hours. We're going to pay myself at the low rate of $25 per hour. Do not feel like $25 per hour is what we are saying is an appropriate pay rate for y'all. It's really going to vary based on where you're at in your artistic practice and how much time you're spending. I would say $25 is likely on the low side. So here, then we have no outside administrative fees. But outside administrative fees would be if I hired a grant writer, if I was hiring somebody to maintain my website, that sort of thing. Administration, my bookkeeper, if I had one. Then we have outside artistic fees. So these are payments to any artists who are doing work on this project that are not the lead applicant. So as we talked about in the application, there's 2 other co-collaborators in this project. So I name them here, and then I say the same thing, 48 hours a week of each of work at $25 an hour, $2,400, which is twice what it is for one person. And then I don't really have much other expenses because we're just testing something. We're just making something with our bodies. It's performing. However, we are going to need some planning and rehearsal supplies like large paper, Sharpies, costumes, props. We don't know exactly what they are yet because we're experimenting because it's art making. So I've just named some examples of what I think we're going to use this money for and a very broad guess. You do not need to get on Staples website and cost out all of your materials and have it down to the penny. We just want your best guess. And we know that it probably won't turn out exactly the way that you made your best guess, right? That's okay. You're just making a plan that's based on guesses. And that is the entire budget. We have a second page here. All it says is the project budget is in balance because the cash expense matches the cash income, which is what you want to see. All of these are formulas. All right, next question. How are we doing on time? 3:39. Pretty good. So then the next question section is going to be artistic vibrancy and impact. So this is basically that section. It's so the National Endowment for the Arts requires that all of their subgrantees include, which is us, right? We have pass-through funding from the NEA that we pass on to y'all. And we're required to use artistic merit and artistic excellence as a review criteria. Luckily, they give us a lot of leeway in how we define that. So we've defined it as artistic vibrancy and impact. And again, if you go to the page and look at the review criteria, it will define that much more. So there's only one narrative question here. You have 1,000 characters. Again, this is what 1,000 characters looks like. It's not very much. And the question here is really describe how this project builds on or expands your existing art practice. Pretty cool. So I'm just going to read the answer that I wrote for this. This will be the second collaboration the three of us have undertaken together, coming from 3 different disciplines: production design and stage management, theater, and contemporary dance. We will be building on initial experiments using viewpoints as a performance and creation process that bridges our disciplines, spending time deepening our collaboration and increasing our artistic skills. While all 3 of us have been focused on new work, this method of devising expands how we create new work and enables us to create a process that can more easily incorporate additional artists. We are artists driven by pressing social and cultural issues, and focusing on an aspect of climate change that is intensely local allows us to more directly connect our abstract ideas and art making to where we are creating and performing. We are building on our individual and collaborative practices, focusing on process and connection to our geographic community. So that really talks about how we all have this, the 3 of these artists have this base artistic practice, and this is how it's going to build on that existing base of an artistic practice and really expand and grow it. Then you're just going to give us a bunch of information about the artists here. So we have upload bio, resume, or CV of the artists involved. Please use bio, resume, or CV, whatever you feel best represents you. If your CV is 50 pages long, please don't submit it, right? These panelists are all reading 25 applications. So I've written up some sample bios here. And you can see they're pretty short. And they are reflected in what the discussion in the narrative question was. So we have just 3 very short bios, standard bios in this PDF form. Then the next piece is this artist statement, right? So this is new. We're requiring it for the first time. Don't be scared. We have that resource on how to make it. So I'll just pull up, and again, it's PDF, and it's all 3 artist statements. So we have artist statements. Oh, I'm missing one. Oh no, there's a second page. I'm not missing one. So here we go. We have these 3 artist statements. They're all different as artist statements are. They're really specific to the artist. There they go. Then the next pieces, so the resume, bio, resume, or CV is required. The artist statement is required. These next 3 are optional if available. So you can include your artist website if you have one, artist social media if you have one, and creative ground profile if you have one. If you don't, that's okay. I would say maybe as much as 50% of the applications that I get for the Make Art Grant are from artists who don't have a website. That's okay. Don't stress about it. If you have it, great. If you don't, also fine. For social media, please do not link your personal social media. We don't want to see what you ate for dinner last night. We want to see your art making. I mean, I want to see what you made for dinner last night, but not as part of this grant application. I also always love photos of pets. Um, but again, not in the grant application unless you're a pet photographer. And then Creative Ground profile if you have one. So Creative Ground is an artist's arts directory that's run by the New England Foundation for the Arts. If you don't have a Creative Ground profile, I encourage you to make one. It's pretty quick and pretty easy. And it's a great New England-wide directory of artists, arts organizations, and such. And then people can find you and contact you. I use it on the regular. And when people ask me for recommendations for artists, I send them to Creative Ground. Completely free, but again, not required. So this next piece is the work samples list. So you're going to want to use a template. Oh, I thought I made a fake one. I didn't make a one, but I can show you the template. So you'll include your work samples list, and the work samples list looks like this. I'll open it. I hope you all can see that. Will somebody give me like a thumbs up if you can see it? Okay, I'm just gonna assume you can. Oh, no, you can't. How about now? Okay, great. So this is the work samples list template, and it's pretty straightforward. The new Make Art grant is very different in the support materials, right? Support materials are gone. We're asking just for really specific things. So the work samples list is your list of what you're submitting as documentation of 3 to 5 pieces of art. So here you would go, the title of the artwork, the file name, what year it was created, the medium, description or technical details, and then context. So for a project like this, I would probably be looking primarily at video files of because these are all performing artists. I would expect to see at least 3 videos, including they mentioned in the application that they had worked together, the 3 of them previously. I would expect to see a video file of that project. So in that, it would have the title, the file name, the year, the medium, which would be performance. Description or technical details could be length. So if it's, you're showing a video of 10-minute video that's an excerpt of a evening length 2-hour piece work. If you're a choreographer and you're showing a piece of choreography via video, you're probably going to want to put information on the music that you're using, that sort of thing. For a visual artist, it would be, size, medium, all of those things you're used to seeing on like the little label, artwork label. And then context. So you can or you don't have to use this section, but I would encourage you to write 2 or 3 sentences about what this work is and how it's meant to be experienced. So if it's a complex sculpture, if it's something that's interactive, if there's a reason, if you're trying to show the breadth of your artistic work and how you want to write something about how it relates to the next project, if you're making a major shift, that sort of thing. So that's what goes on in there. Okay, are we back to the application now? Can you see the application? Yes. Okay, thanks y'all in the chat. Whew. So that's what you'll upload here. And then here, you're gonna share a link that's documentation. Zoom in. I'm not sure I can. There we go. There we go. That's as much as zoom in as I can get. So here we'll have the documentation of 3 to 5 pieces of art. So this can include images, video, audio, and or writing. Pieces of art, what do we mean by that? That can mean a short film, a graphic novel, a dance, a painting, a piece of jewelry, a song, a sculpture, a performance in a public place, a poem, a class or lesson or workshop you taught or the work of your students if you're primarily a teaching artist, or something like a quilt. Just got to toss in the textile at the very end. I'm laughing because the one face I see right now is a textile artist. Um, so you're going to submit all of that documentation in a Google Drive folder that's either the settings are either open to everyone with the link or link in a password. This is really great because previously we had very low file size limitations within this online grant portal, right? So you could only upload images that were 2 MB or less, which was a huge disservice to our, three-dimensional, our film folks who are making films or audio, right? And even a pretty low resolution photo. So now we don't have those limitations anymore. You're going to put stuff in a Google Drive folder, and we'll be able to look at them as you hopefully intend instead of very low resolution versions. You can submit a maximum total across the 3 to 5 pieces of art of 10 images and 10 minutes of video and 10 minutes of audio and up to 20 pages of writing. I do want to say what you're doing here is documenting your pieces of art. So this is not a place where you would put something like a letter of recommendation, a review, any marketing promotional materials. It's really documentation of those art pieces. And then we have the password to the Google Drive. If necessary, you're welcome to make it password protected. You just have to put the password in there because we want to make it easy for me and for the panelists to check it out. And then finally, we're going to ask you what congressional district you live in. There's only 2 choices, 1 or 2. Erica Musterman lives in Congressional District 1. And then here's a link to find out. And then finally, we have this assurances section, which really just says, I'm going to comply with federal and state law and the rules and regulations. Everything that I wrote here is accurate. It's my own work. And I'm going to do the project if I say yes. So you'll just certify, say yes, write your name, the date, and then hit submit once you're done. I do want to flag for y'all this very handy save application piece. So you don't need to finish this all in one sitting. You can come down here and work on one piece at a time, check it out, hit save application, which I'm going to do right now. It will remind me of the things that I haven't done yet, but it saved it. Everything's fine. Here it is. Okay, so that's the Make Art grant. I might pause for like 5 minutes of questions. So I'm going to turn off the recording for questions. Oh, hold on. Maybe I am. Okay, so here we are for community engaged project grants. So again, we're back on the grants page of our website, and we're just going to click in here to community engaged project grants. And again, we have all of these same pieces on the right side: guidelines, applications, evaluation criteria, and scoring. One thing I do want to let you know is that the artist budget template, the project plan template, and the work samples list template, they're the same for both Make Art grant and community engaged project grant. So they're there in both places, but they're the same. So what is the community engaged project grant? So the community engaged project grant supports arts and culture projects that directly and actively engage the public in Rhode Island and or a specific Rhode Island community. Projects must be artist instigated and organized outside of institutional support and structures. Grant, again, is open to projects of all arts disciplines from artists and creatives of all level. They must welcome non or new artists to actively engage in making, experiencing, or learning about art. A project that has really meaningful and robust engagement with a small group of people is equally as valuable as a one-time event that many people attend. So for example, if you're teaching a 12 or 14 week class and 10 people will attend that class, that's going to be a really meaningful and robust engagement for a small group. That's super valuable. Also valuable is a 1 day large workshop, concert, public event where a ton of people attend, right? Those are both valuable in different ways. One is not more valuable than the other. We're not just measuring numbers of attendees. That's not the only way we measure impact. Um, Here again, though, word amount is up to $5,000. A lot of this is the same as the Make Art grant. You have to be an artist that lives in Rhode Island. And then we're going to just look at, again, all of these same resources and materials. We have these 3 project definitions. And again, we'll be looking a little more closely at what a project plan and a budget look like for this example 1. So I'm just going to read that example as a start. An artist will lead 6 weekly art making days at the Central Library in Warwick for youth ages 8 to 12. The making days will include gentle instruction, a wide variety of materials, and space to imagine. The classes are in the afternoons and free to all participants and their caregivers. So you can see these 3 projects vary pretty widely. The one thing they have in common is that non or new artists are actively engaged in some way. They're not coming into an art gallery and looking at art on the wall. They're not going to a show in a theater and just sitting and watching. They're actively engaged. So then if we click here, proceed to online application, it will take you to the same dashboard, all of the same stuff. And I'm going to click into my in progress application here. Maybe I am. Here it is. So then we're going to see, very similar to the Make Art grant, the same quick links, the guidelines as a PDF, evaluation criteria as a PDF, and then these 3 templates that again are the same between Make Art grant and Community Engaged Project grant. So here we have this same eligibility checklist. Boop, 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 boop. It does include this project is taking place in an ADA compliant location because it's a publicly engaged project, has to be in an ADA compliant location. And then same question about partial funding. Again, this section is only visible to RISCA staff. It's not visible to the panelists. And this partial funding piece will have no impact on your score or likelihood of receiving future grants. And then same pieces, you'll recognize it. Here we have preferred name, pronouns, project name, which is just Art Making Days at Warwick Library. And then we have this project summary. Teaching artist Erica Musterman will lead 6 weekly visual art making days at the Central Library in Warwick for youth ages 8 to 12. The making days will include gentle instruction, a wide variety of materials, and space to imagine. The classes are in the afternoons and free to all participants and their caregivers. So there's some stuff that we have in here that's like the meat of it, right? There's going to be 6 of these classes. They'll happen weekly. Where they're going to happen, Central Library, who they're for, youth ages 8 to 12, what they are, general instruction, wide variety of materials, and free to all participants and their caregivers. Again, they don't have to be free. You can charge, that's fine. These ones are free. Then I don't have a full completed sample application for this one yet. We're building those over the next year or so since we have brand new grant applications. So I won't be looking at something so concrete on this one. So again, amount requested, you can request up to $5,000. Same piece about when will this project take place. So this project is happening on a pretty tight time frame, but we already know it's 6 weekly classes. So it's happening from July 14th through August 31st. Project location. So here we have the project location along with the address and the city or town, and obviously it's in Rhode Island because we only fund project activity happening in Rhode Island. If you have not confirmed the location yet, that's okay. we understand that what you're submitting the grant application for is a plan. So don't worry about it. Give us as much information as you can, or write not confirmed. If you're like, I'm in conversations with X, Y, and Z library, or I'm in conversations with this dance studio, or you can submit that. Or even something like, I'm thinking of these 3 locations, but I haven't confirmed yet, just to give folks, the panelists, an idea of the type of space you're expecting to hold this in. But again, if it's not confirmed, that's okay. The second piece, in this project, no other artists are involved. So that's just none. If there were other artists involved, you would just write their names and their roles in the project. Here we get to some of the differences. So here we're going to say intended participants and audience. Again, this is not, you don't want to be selecting all of these, right? Because not everything is for every person. We know that you're not making everything for everyone. We want to see who you are really making this for, as a prioritization or targeting. Again, you can't be excluding folks. This has to be open to the public, but this can be your sort of target audience. So as I've noted above in my description, this is specifically for youth ages 8 to 12. So I have clicked children and youth aged 5 to 18. I'm not specifically targeting any of these other populations, except I am targeting Warwick residents because this project is happening in Warwick. One of the things that's important about this project is that it's happening in Warwick, not in Providence, right? We want to make sure that everybody has access to high quality art experiences in the places they live. We want to be everywhere all around the state. So having it targeted to a specific geography, totally valid. And I've listed it right here that this is targeted to Warwick residents. It's not only for Warwick residents. Then again, we have the project plan, which is the same exact template as earlier. This one has a little bit more detail. So I'm going to show you my project plan for this Art Making Days at the library. I'm going to zoom in as much as I can. So here I have the first bit of July. So the grant program period starts July 1st. I can't start any earlier than that, and pay for stuff. If I start earlier than that, it's fine. I just can't pay for that time or those supplies. So here I have what I'm going to be doing between July 1st and the 18th. It's pretty straightforward. Create the lesson plans, gather all of the supplies, and promote and market these events. Then I've broken down each of the 6 classes that I'll be leading. So here in the task, it has what the class is, and then a short 1-sentence description of what it is. And then just the note that each class is 2 hours long, plus 30 minutes to set up and clean up for a total of 3 hours. This will come into play later in the budget, as you can imagine, as we're assembling how much to pay this artist. So you can see that I've given like very basic what we're going to do in these classes. And then I've included again here a project closeout, because this is something I want to do again, right? I'm primarily a teaching artist. I want to be teaching these classes again. So I'm going to write down what went well. I'm going to update my lesson plans so that I don't have to think back, in 6 months from now when I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. I'm going to review participant surveys. So that says, hey, I'm going to do some participant surveys. And then I'm going to submit my grant final report, because that is valuable time that we do have to account for. So it's a little bit more detailed, but it's not super crazy. You don't have to say every tiny little thing, but giving the panel just an idea of how the logistics work. So then here we'll have the same metrics for success. The metrics themselves are different. The options are different than the Make Art Grant, but just in the same way of the Make Art Grant, you're identifying what you care about, what you're going to measure, what you think a successful project is. And so for this project, based on what we're doing, I'm going to say number of participants. I'm going to hope, my internal metric is at least 10 participants, and their caregivers come to each one. specific learning goals for the participants, and then satisfaction of the participants. The other stuff doesn't matter to me as much. It doesn't mean it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean I don't care about it. It's just not how I am measuring success in these standpoints. And then I kind of pulled out for you what I'm going to measure. You don't need to write that down here, but you should keep it in mind as you're developing these metrics for success. I have this goal, 10 people will learn. I have this specific learning goal that these youth's fine motor skills will improve in X, Y, and Z ways. I hope that through the participant surveys, they say they had fun and learned something and got along with their peers. And then again, if these don't fit what you're doing or you want other measures of success, you can add them. Here we go again. What we will not spend money on. It's the same list. It's on all of our grants. And then we have this budget piece again, and I will show you the budget for this Making Days. So this grant, I'm going to apply for $2,806, which is a bit of an odd number, but you'll see where I got it in a second. So here we go down again, no earned revenue. I said that it was going to be free. If I was charging $5 per session, I would put right up here, I'd say workshop tuition, $5 per session, estimated attendance, 10 people, $50 per session, 6 sessions, $350. I think my math is right there. Close enough. And then I'd put that here in earned revenue. It would increase this number too. So I would actually probably decrease my RISCA request amount. So then here we have 40 hours of work at $50 an hour that I'm paying myself. 4 hours per class. So as I said in the project plan, the class is 2 hours, 30 minutes to set up, 30 minutes to clean up, and 30 minutes each way to get there, right? The travel time and car packing time. Then I'm going to use 5 hours about for marketing and promotion, 4 hours to gather and purchase the supplies, 5 hours on lesson planning, and 2 hours of post-project admin. Again, this is an estimate. This is my best guess on what I'm going to spend my time on. If I don't end up spending my time this way, that's okay, right? You're just making your best guess. Outside administrative fees. So I know I should never, ever graphic design a flyer or a postcard. I know that about myself. I also know I have a friend who would do it for $50. I'm going to pay that friend $50 to do it. That's underpaying them, but I know they will, and I know they won't spend very long on it because of what it is, right? It doesn't need to be a work of art. It just needs to be something more visually appealing than I would do myself. We joke about what happens when I design graphics at RISCA. It's not good. Then I'm going to have one line item here, advertising, PR, marketing. And I've said that that's for printing of the postcards and the flyers. And then I'm also going to do some sponsored posts in local mom blogs. Those have a really high readership. They're really popular. It's a great way to get the word out about youth. So, right, thinking creatively about spending a little bit of money on that. Then I don't have travel. I don't have space rental because I'm in a library. They're giving me the space for free. I do have materials and supplies. So I'm budgeting $50 a class. And then I'm also naming, in addition to using materials that I already have, and found and recycled materials. So some of the stuff like for the block printing class will be, foam that I have left over from my Amazon boxes. But I'm estimating I'll need about $50 per class. I don't name what the materials are here, and that's okay because you can kind of guess from the project plan, right? And then taxes. I didn't include this in the Make Art grant budget, and I should have, but I will remind y'all that grants are taxable income. Grants like this, not all grants, are taxable income. And so I have looked up what self-employment tax is, also called FICA, and it's 15.3%. Because I know that this is money that's going to go out, I won't end up paying tax on this, right? Because I've spent the dollars. What I will have to pay tax on is this payment to applicant. So this 306, this is where I get the $6. That's 15.3% of $2,000. So I've said straight out here, I know I'm going to have to pay tax on this, and I've accounted for it here. Some people add this in, some people don't. It's up to you, but just it's good to keep in mind as you're doing a project as an artist that you gotta pay taxes. Okay, next section. So the CEPG does have some narrative questions in a way the Make Art grant doesn't. Feel free to not, I mean, they're pretty short, but also you don't need to use 1,000 characters. You can use bullet points. You don't need to write complete sentences, right? You just want something so the panel can understand what you're doing. And again, these will all, if you look at the evaluation criteria, these all directly relate to the evaluation criteria. So the first question is, how is art central to this project? This might be a really simple to answer. This is literally art instruction. These students are learning to make art. Boom, you're done, right? Art is central to the project. It's the main activity. You will be surprised by how many applications we get for projects that are not art projects. So we ended up tagging that as a major headline here. How will the artist or artists provide a positive and purposeful experience for their participants? Because this grant isn't about the artist, it's about who's going to be doing these activities, right? We care about who you're engaging with. So we want to make sure that you have the capacity, capability, experience to provide a positive and purposeful experience for these specific participants. So, for example, this project is 8 to 12-year-olds, and you look at my resume, and I've never worked with kids. I teach college. That's the youngest age group I've ever taught. I probably cannot provide a positive and purposeful experience for 8 to 12-year-olds with zero training and zero experience and zero assistance. However, if it was my first time working with this population and I partnered with a teaching artist who is used to working with this population, that would be great because then I could learn how to do it. And because I'm working with someone who does have experience, that will probably mean I can create a positive and purposeful experience for the participants. Then we go to how does this project provide access to or engage underserved communities as identified by the National Endowment for the Arts. So the National Endowment for the Arts has a call to us in our partnership agreement, which is our contract with them when we get their funding. And of course, these are forward funded. So we're working off our partnership agreement from a year ago. And we specifically are charged with providing access or engaging underserved communities in a way that's defined by the NEA. Here in the arts, a lot of that means rural communities. We are really underserving our rural communities in the arts across the country. So think creatively about what underserved means. And remember that it's not only for underserved folks, it can include underserved folks. Then we'll go to this bio, resume, or CV. Again, we're back to the same stuff. Artist website, artist social media, creative ground profile. Then we have the same work samples list using the same template. Here for CEPG, you have documentation only of up to 3 work samples because the Make Art grant is really about the art making, and this is not so much about the art making. I encourage you when you're thinking about your work samples for the Community Engaged Project Grant to think about what's relevant to this project. So again, if I primarily teach college students and I'm going to teach youth, I probably don't want to only include work that I'm doing with college students. I want to say, here's some work that I've done in the past with this targeted group. So something that's relevant here. Again, up to 3 work samples, Google Drive. Then the final section and review criteria is community engagement. There's only one question here. How does this project incorporate active, two-way, and meaningful engagement with the participants? Again, since the youth are going to be actively making their own work with some gentle instruction, pretty easy to answer. If they were just going into an art gallery and looking, harder to answer. Then we have this last upload, which is a testimonial. This can be a letter of support. It can be a short testimonial from somebody who has taken a class from you in the past or knows your experience. This could be a list of quotes of past participants, kind of a choose your own adventure, some sort of testimonial saying, yes, this person has can work with this group of people in a respectful, positive, and purposeful way, right? And then we'll move on down here. Again, we're going to ask you who your representative is. We're not going to ask you who your representative is. We're going to ask you what number of district you're in. And then again, we have the assurances. They're exactly the same. You're telling the truth. You're going to sign and date. And then we'll save application or submit application. All right. And that is the Make Art Grant and the Community Engaged Project Grant. I'm